So in this video, I wanted to go over some upgrades that I've made to the stock 2024 Domane AL5. This includes some weight savings, some aerodynamic benefits, and reduced rolling resistance. And then I also want to go over some general upgrades unrelated to the bike, but do make a difference if you're coming from the entry-level equipment. So the first upgrade I made was to change out the stock tubes with some TPU tubes. So there's a huge weight savings here, surprisingly. This is the tube that came with the bike, and it's weighing in at 113 grams. And of course, these TPU tubes come in at 24 grams. So huge weight savings there. Especially when you consider you not only have these in the tires, but you carry these as spares. So if you carry 2 or 3, the savings really starts to add up. The next upgrade I did was to change out the stock tire. These come with the Bontrager R1s hard light. So these are actually pretty heavy. I'll call these 440 because it's hard to balance it like this. So I changed them out with some Connie GP 5000s, and these come in around 235 grams each. And also I didn't keep the same size, so these are 32 width tires that come with the bike, and I changed them out to some 28 to reduce the weight even more. So not only did I save a ton of weight by changing from the rubber to the TPU tubes and from the 32 stock to the 28s, there's also a large difference in rolling resistance between these tires and tubes. So the tubes themselves have a large rolling resistance difference. These TPUs have lower rolling resistance than the butyl rubber, as well as the tires. This is a lower end tire, and it has relatively high rolling resistance. The GP 5000s, of course, have significantly lower rolling resistance. And not only that, but they are significantly better handling in all types of weather, so rain and dry. They perform significantly better, and they will last a lot longer. The rubber is a much better compound than the stock Bontragers. It's new to me to sit on a bike like this with the really low drops, and I know this isn't much drop compared to some really aggressive positions, but the low center of gravity lets you really brake compared to my older bike where I was sitting way up higher. So I have actually been able to lock these up when a car pulled out in front of me, but just barely. The back was kind of just catching. It was almost like anti-lock brakes, but I was able to go from about 20 or 25 to 0 in a very short distance. So after doing the wheels and the tubes, I also upgraded the wheels themselves. So the stock wheels are these, I think they're Bontrager Paradigms. Yeah, they're Paradigms. You can see that. So they're not bad. They come with the Shimano rotors and the 12-speed cassette. And the hub isn't bad. It sounds pretty cool, actually. I think these are Paul. I think there are pawls in there. It's not a ratchet system, but I'm not sure. So this is the stock wheel, and of course it's aluminum. I'll show the weight later in the video on what the specs are for this rim. But I upgraded them to the Bontrager carbon wheel. This is the AL5 Pro. So not only is this lighter, it's of course significantly more aerodynamic at speed. This short height right here compared to that 51 makes a big difference at speed. Not to mention, even though those carbon wheels are much deeper, they're actually lighter than these wheels. And with all of that weight around the diameter of these wheels, so the tubes, tires, and wheels, this makes a massive difference. When you're taking off, you really feel how much easier it is to accelerate from a stop. Also, the hub used on here is pretty sweet because it uses a DT Swiss internal ratchet system, even though the outer shell is like Bontrager, I think, but the inners are still the DT Swiss ratchet, so you could actually upgrade these. These are the 18 tooth, I believe, and you could upgrade these to 36 or 54 tooth for a better engagement. You could go a long way in between the ratchet. So this might be my next upgrade, to upgrade that to a 36 or the 54 tooth engagement, because really, if I'm really trying to accelerate out of a corner, this is a lot of play to lose on the downstroke if I'm trying to pedal hard coming from a coast. Also, pairing these 28 Connies with this wheel was basically aerodynamically optimal because these wheels are at 31 millimeters width right here, and these, after breaking these in, are right at 30 millimeters. So as far as aerodynamics, there's a good transition to the slightly smaller tire to the larger wheel right here, so there's a good transition for the air to follow. When you compare that to this 32 tire and this wheel, it's a better combination because this is like a big bulb and the air can't transition very well to the short and fat rim here. So those are the upgrades that I made directly to the bike to reduce the weight, increase performance. The next upgrades I'm going to go over are independent of the bike, but if you're coming from an entry-level type bike with entry-level components and gear and equipment, then these will make a big difference. So to start off with, I put carbon fiber bottle holders. So compared these to like the cheaper aluminum ones, and there's some weight savings right there. Next, I upgraded the pedals. So of course, this bike does not come with pedals, so you can get your choice. If you were to come with entry-level pedals from your old bike and put them on here, there would be a difference versus these higher end pedals. So I actually had Shimano 105 pedals, which aren't bad, but they're a little heavy. They're at I think 160 grams each. And since I was wanting to put a power system on here as another upgrade, I opted for these Favaro Asiomas, I think is how they pronounce them. Asioma right there. So not only was I able to get power data now, these are actually lighter. These measured in about 151 grams. So there's a weight savings plus you get good data. Seeing the data is actually really important if you've never actually had a power meter to compare your track performance. So here's a quick summary of the weight savings that I've done. So for the wheel, tire, and tube changes, the difference for the total assembly of the front and rear wheel are right here. Here's the weight difference. So for the rear, it was a difference of 507 grams. For the front, a difference of 403 grams. And so that's directly changing parts on the bike. And then if you include comparing pedals and bottle cages, then we have a medium level pedal and then a higher end pedal for the power pedals that I have. So there's between both pedals, it's about 18 gram savings. And then like something like bottle cages, an aluminum bottle cage weighs about 61. Since there are two, the weight saving comes out to about 72 grams. So since you need pedals and bottle cages, I'm including that. So if I add all of that, then the changes I've done have saved about a kilo of weight, so about 2.2 pounds. And I weighed my bike afterward, and it's a size 52, and it weighs about 18.7 pounds, which is pretty good for a lower medium grade bike. So the spec weight for a size 56 on the truck website is 21.72 pounds. So if you made these exact same changes on on any size, you would still save 2.2 pounds. So if you were a size 56, you'd still be able to get it down to about 19.5 pounds, which is still pretty good for an endurance bike made out of aluminum. And the next upgrade I did was to my helmet, because I came from a very cheap Mongoose helmet that I had for about 5 to 10 years, and I upgraded to this Met Vinci helmet. So this only weighs about 260 grams, I believe. That's weighing actually about 281, but I do have this mirror and a ton of duct tape right there. So I'll say it's 270 grams without that. It might be closer to 265. So compared that to the 350 gram Mongoose helmet I had, this is a big savings, and I no longer get neck pain on the back of my head, near the back of my head, for having to support such a large helmet. Plus, this flows a ton more air and is way more aerodynamic and physically smaller, so I don't feel like I have a huge sail on my head when I'm at speed. And the next upgrade I did was to change out my shoes to some higher end shoes. So these are the pair that I've had on my entry level older 90s bike, and these are some Gyros. These weren't bad, but they just weren't very comfortable, and they were really hot when riding. So I upgraded them to these legs. These are the CX238s, and so these have a really stiff sole, carbon fiber. These actually are heavier than these Gyros, but these feel way more comfortable. And because of all these perforations throughout, these keep cool even in 100-degree weather. So, and I think this is actually kangaroo skin, so it's super supple and feels good on the feet. Plus, going to these double adjusters makes a huge difference in comfort too, so you don't get any hot spots, and it doesn't feel like you're really crushing the top of your foot. Compared to these kind of cheaper Velcro and ratchet system, like this is way better for adjustability. So that's it as far as direct upgrades to the bike, as well as the gear you wear or use. So probably the biggest upgrade I did, and it's not necessarily an upgrade, was to get a bike fit as soon as I got this bike, to make sure it fit me and was adjusted to me. So Trek has a 30-day return policy, so if it doesn't fit, you can still return it even if you've ridden it a little bit. So I definitely recommend getting a bike fit because I've always had pain in my upper back and trap area, and it had nothing to do with my bike fit. It was apparently because I wasn't rotating my pelvis forward and stretching out my hamstrings. So I was actually bending at my spine instead of pivoting at the waist. So that was the biggest change for me, and is obviously my fault because that's kind of obvious. But I've dealt with pain after cycling for like 10 years now, and it was only because I wasn't pivoting at my pelvis. And you also get a lot of insight into how your body performs, like to how asymmetric you are, and if you have muscle tightness or weakness in areas. So in my case, like my right leg was significantly stronger, so it was like kind of tilting me on the saddle because that right glute muscle's overdeveloped compared to my left. But all these little data, especially if you do a 3D where they put little sensors all over your body and you can get a 3D mapping of how you ride, it was really helpful to make sure you're riding correctly, and this is fitted directly to your body. That way you could put more power down and stay in the saddle way longer and feel comfortable the whole time. So those are all the upgrades I've done directly to the stock bike, as well as upgrading all the equipment and gear that I already had. I would definitely recommend upgrading the equipment if you are coming from entry level. If you're coming from entry level and upgrading to a better, like a higher end road bike. This isn't like super high end or anything. This is mid level, but all the components that you put on it make a huge difference in getting performance up to a higher end bike. Plus it makes everything way more enjoyable. Thanks for watching.